Today, we're taking a really fascinating journey into the world of cinema. We're doing a side-by-side comparison of two pretty remarkable films. The Spanish psychological thriller Abre, Los Ojos, which came out back in 1997, and its American remake Vanilla Sky from 2001.
And these really aren't just two movies that happen to share a plot. I mean, they are two profoundly distinct cinematic experiences. Both are built around this incredibly intriguing premise that it really forces you to question the very nature of reality, perception, even your own identity.
Exactly.
It's a deep dive. It doesn't just entertain. It actually kind of gets inside your head, you know, challenges your understanding of what's even real.
Right. So our mission today is to explore how these films, even though they have this identical narrative backbone, how they diverge pretty wildly in their approach to character, their whole atmospheric tone, the specific, like, a unique value they offer you as an audience member, and ultimately the lingering questions they leave you thinking about long after the credits roll. We'll be uncovering the subtle shifts and the big reinterpretations that make each film its own unique beast, even though they came from the same blueprint.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
Now, before we go any further, a really crucial heads up. Because we're focusing on the intricate plot twists, the unique value of specific scenes, and especially the endings, the pivotal endings, this deep dive will reveal significant plot points. From both Abre los Ojos and Vanilla Sky.
Huge spoilers ahead, basically.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen them, and you want to experience those surprises firsthand, this is definitely your moment to hit pause.
Yeah.
You have been warned.
Consider yourself warned.
For everyone else who's ready to plunge into the fascinating depths of these two cinematic puzzles, well, let's open our eyes and dive right in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute core, right? The shared foundation that both Abre los Ojos and Vanilla Sky are built on. It's actually quite remarkable how faithfully the remake sticks to the original's central premise, at least, at the beginning.
No, absolutely. In both films, we meet a protagonist who, well, on the surface, seems to have everything. Immense wealth, undeniable charm, this seemingly carefree life as a total playboy.
Right. In Abre los Ojos, that's Cesar. And in Vanilla Sky, it's David Ames, played by Tom Cruise. Their lives seem perfect, but they're about to take a massive, devastating turn.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. The catalyst for everything that follows, the moment their whole carefully constructed world just shatters, it's this brutal, life-altering car accident.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, it's not just some random accident, it's deliberate. It's a vengeful act, orchestrated by a spurned lover. That's Nuria in Abre los Ojos, and Julie Gianni, played by Cameron Diaz in Vanilla Sky.
And this accident, this catastrophic event, it leaves the protagonist severely, grotesquely disfigured. It's a shocking physical transformation, obviously.
Horrific.
But maybe more profoundly, it just shatters their self-image, their whole perception of who they are, and consequently, their very grasp on reality. This disfigurement isn't just a plot point. It's like the external manifestation of their internal world completely unraveling.
Exactly. And from that moment on, their reality completely blurs. It becomes this surreal waking nightmare. They find themselves trapped in this maze of confusion where the lines between what's real and what's imagined just get increasingly hard to tell apart.
Yeah, and this descent into mental chaos, it's not just disorienting for the character, right? It's disorienting for us, the audience, because we're pulled right into their subjective experience. We're trying to piece together this fractured narrative along with them. And this escalating confusion, it all culminates in them being imprisoned for murder. A crime they're accused of committing within this distorted, dreamlike state. It's a truly disorienting ride that forces you constantly to question the authenticity of basically every scene you watch.
And what's truly fascinating here is how both films meticulously build towards this one major plot twist, the twist that just recontextualizes everything you've seen up to that point.
The big reveal.
The big reveal. The protagonist, it turns out, isn't actually experiencing reality as we know it. Instead, he's in a state of cryogenic suspension. He's essentially frozen in time deep within some facility.
Wow.
So his experiences, not real. They're a meticulously crafted, lucid dream generated by this futuristic company called Life Extension. This advanced tech is designed to keep their minds active and, happy, blissful until their physical problems can be cured way off in the future.
Right, like a holding pattern.
Exactly. But as the story unfolds, it becomes chillingly clear that this carefully constructed fantasy, this utopia, has gone terribly, terribly wrong. It transforms from this promise of eternal bliss into like a horrifying psychological prison.
So with that just astounding revelation, the central question then becomes, okay, what happens next? Both films ultimately present the protagonist with this agonizing, almost impossible choice.
Right. Do they choose to continue living inside this flawed, corrupted, lucid dream?
Yeah.
With the promise that, tech support from Life Extension can find and fix the glitches, restore their perfect, albeit totally artificial fantasy.
Or do they choose option B? Awaken from this technologically induced sleep, confront this uncertain, maybe terrifying, real-world future with all its imperfections, the physical scars, the frightening unknowns.
It's a profound dilemma. It really makes you think about the value of a perceived perfect reality versus maybe a harsh, undeniable truth. What would you choose? It's a tough one.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this brings us straight to the fundamental thematic question that underpins both movies. The blurring of perception and reality and, well, the very nature of existence itself.
Vanilla Sky specifically, as a lot of film analysts have pointed out, really delves into the complex themes of identity, perception, and reality, actively challenging the audience's understanding of what is real and what is imagined.
Yeah.
This isn't just some simple sci-fi premise for a thrilling ride. It's a philosophical exploration. What defines our selfhood? How do our minds construct our world? And just how fragile is our grasp on what's real anyway?
Yeah.
It's like a journey into the philosophical rabbit hole, but wrapped up in a cinematic story.
And the film critic Roger Ebert, he just nailed it, as usual. He wrote that Vanilla Sky requires the audience to do some heavy lifting.
Yeah, I remember that.
He said it is one of those plots that doubles back on itself like an Escher staircase.
Yeah.
Its hero is as baffled as we are. And that phrase, Escher staircase, it perfectly captures that aha moment, or maybe that wait, what moment we crave in a psychological thriller.
Totally.
It's not about being spoon-fed answers. It's about actively engaging with the puzzle right alongside the protagonist, trying to sort out what's real from what's just a construct of their mind or maybe even a technological glitch. It pulls you in, demands your attention, demands your critical thinking.
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, both films are basically asking, if you can't trust your own senses, what can you trust? What constitutes a meaningful existence if it might all be an illusion?
Right.
And what are the implications for human connection, for love, for responsibility, if your reality is entirely subjective or worse, manufactured? This core question, though, it's delivered with different levels of subtlety and emotional weight in each version, and that's precisely where their divergent interpretations start to really shine, revealing the unique value of each film.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this more. Because while the core plot is identical, the films really do diverge in their interpretations and execution. And nowhere is this clearer than in how they portrayed the main character's narcissism and what we call their inner and outer ugly. In Abre, the original Spanish film, Cesar is pretty explicitly portrayed as ugly inside, even before the accident flicks his life upside down.
That's a crucial distinction. It really defines the original. It's often remarked among fans, online discussions and such, that Cesar, despite being handsome, is fundamentally not a great person.
Yeah, he's kind of a jerk.
Totally. He's self-centered, casually discards lovers. One Reddit user pointed out he immediately and blatantly steals the girl of his friend's dreams right in front of his friend's face. His outward perfection hides this shallow, self-serving guy.
So his horrific disfigurement after the accident, then, it isn't just physical trauma. It's this profound, unavoidable confrontation with his own inner ugliness. It forces him to see himself as he truly is.
Exactly. And that leads to this crippling depression that drives his choice for cryogenic suspension. It's a desperate escape from a reality he just can't bear to face anymore. The film kind of paints him as someone who acts like he has suffered the worst fate possible. And in a way, he chooses to kill himself simply because he can't handle being ugly but rich. Physical imperfection is intolerable to him, not just the pain.
So he's not really presented as a victim, even of circumstance, not in the traditional hero way.
Yeah.
He's very much suffering the consequences of his own character, or maybe his lack of character.
Right. Graham St. John Stott, a film scholar, points out that while Abre los Ojos might initially present Cesar as the victim of circumstances beyond his control, acting impulsively and reacting with alarm to the hallucinations, there's this underlying implication that his prior actions, his choices, they fuel his eventual downfall. His decisions, even if made when he's confused, still kind of stem from his inherent nature.
Okay. Now let's shift focus to Vanilla Sky. The portrayal of David Ames, Tom Cruise's character, takes a significantly different turn, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, big time. The film leans much more towards a sympathetic, almost victimized archetype. Viewers often observe that Crowe's character is intentionally played to evoke more pity.
How so?
Well, it's implied that the board dislikes him and schemes against him, that he works hard to become a better person after the accident, but he isn't accepted, and ultimately he's presented more as a good person, but society can't accept his ugliness.
Right, which led to some critics calling it a narcissistic vanity project for Tom Cruise. That the character was maybe too sanitized, too likable for the story to hit as hard as the original.
Exactly. And Stott's analysis of Vanilla Sky goes even further. He firmly positions it as a case study in narcissistic personality disorder. He argues David's actions, unlike Caesar's more impulsive ones, are carried out with deliberation and with hate.
Wow, deliberation and hate, that's strong.
Yeah. Stott suggests David kills because he cannot accept the demands of another, seeing it as a blow to his self-sufficiency. The film depicts David as someone who feeds his ego on Sophia's love for him, but he does not really love her, indicating a deeper pathology than just being a victim of circumstance.
So the idea that David killed in a dream doesn't really absolve him in this reading.
Not according to Stott. He asserts David knew what he was doing to protect his self-image and sustain his pleasure, unlike Caesar, who's presented as more reactive. It's a deliberate manifestation of his deeper issues, even within that created reality.
This raises a really important question then. Does making the protagonist more sympathetic fundamentally change the film's message about self-responsibility, about the consequences of your own character?
It's a key question. In Abre, Ojos, Cesar's inner ugliness is directly mirrored by his outer disfigurement. It forces this brutal self-reckoning. The unique value there is that direct, unvarnished confrontation with his flawed humanity.
Whereas in Vanilla Sky,
David's outward suffering often feels separate from, or even a cause for, his internal turmoil. And that can soften the blow of his inherent narcissism for the audience. This shift in characterization is a key part of the remake's distinct identity. It makes you consider how a different portrayal can completely alter your emotional connection and thematic understanding. It makes you ask, can true redemption happen if you're still kind of rooting for the narcissist?
absolutely. And it feeds right into the stark differences in tone and atmosphere between the two films. Abre los Ojos is consistently described as having a very dark tone. It feels almost cold and distant.
It meticulously builds this pervasive sense of, subdued paranoia. It really pulls you deep inside the main character's fractured perspective, fostering the strong sense of confusion and wonder.
The mystery, as many viewers have noted, was just so much better in Abre los Ojos, largely due to its blurry dream sequences, the switching from reality to dream, and the constant questioning of reality. It keeps you guessing, right?
Yeah.
It unsettles you with its deliberate ambiguity, never quite giving you solid ground to stand on. It feels like a slowly creeping nightmare.
Totally. In contrast, Vanilla Sky is decidedly more emotional, more kinetic, and it leans heavily into sensory overload, almost as if mirroring David's own internal chaos.
Oh, right. Tom Cruise's portrayal for some was too jovial or more optimistic than Caesar was, which perhaps ironically could detract from the sheer nightmare quality the film was trying to convey.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Ethan Warren, in his defense of Vanilla Sky, highlights the kinetic to the point of sensory overload opening sequence in Times Square. Think about that image. A completely deserted Times Square, which is surreal in itself.
Unforgettable image.
And it's scored to this thundering trip hop. The camera's swooping, pushing, assaulting the screen with intercut ads and magazine covers. This is such a stark contrast to Abre los Ojos' opening, which is much more restrained. A simple receding crane shot and an ominous swelling of strings and horns for a similar effect of isolation.
Right.
The American film just screams, while the Spanish film whispers.
That sounds like a very deliberate choice, though, to immediately immerse you, almost overwhelm you right from the start. Warren even argues Crowe's film is composed entirely of dissonance, a film at odds with itself. Yet he notes that while this unsettling disharmony has long alienated viewers, for a modest but vocal group of fans, the incoherence of vision yields intrigue. So for some, that very sensory overload, that emotional directness, is part of its unique appeal. It pulls you into David's internal chaos rather than keeping you at that cold, distant remove.
Exactly. It's a different kind of experience, demanding a different kind of heavy lifting from the audience, maybe challenging them to find meaning within the chaos itself.
And this heightened emotionality and sensory input are also profoundly influenced by one of Vanilla Sky's most distinctive and frankly defining characteristics, its music and pop culture integration.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack. Huge difference. In Abre los Ojos, the music is largely a more traditional, low-key score. Some found it had an atmospheric vibe, maybe felt a bit like a horror movie score at times, but it mostly serves as background, enhancing the dark tone without drawing too much attention to itself.
Its unique value there is its subtlety, right? Letting the unsettling quiet contribute to the mystery.
Precisely. But in Vanilla Sky, oh man, the music takes on this monumental role. It's not just a soundtrack, it's practically another character, a vibrant thread woven through David's reality, whether that reality is real or imagined.
As one writer put it, music has a much more important role in Vanilla Sky versus Abre los Ojos. It boasts this powerhouse soundtrack of major names and music icons, featuring something like 40 songs.
An incredible number. And Nancy Wilson, the film's composer and Cameron Crowe's wife at the time, created this collage of sounds to reflect the main character's growing unease and confusion. This wasn't just about setting a mood. It was about building a sonic dreamscape that actively contributes to the film's unique value, immersing you in David's psychological state.
And what's really fascinating here is Cameron Crowe's deliberate intention to infuse the film with a Beatles vibe. He even went so far as to secure a custom title track from Sir Paul McCartney himself, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was a big deal. And the commercial tracks woven throughout the film aren't just background noise either. They underline the film's aesthetic, the grounded and realistic cinematography, the linear, if strange storyline, that uncanny oddness that makes it hard to tell what is a dream, nightmare, or just a very bad night. The music acts as this almost subliminal guide, reflecting David's internal turmoil and the artificiality of his reality.
And it gets even more personal, doesn't it? Adding another deeply unique layer to Vanilla Sky. Ethan Warren really emphasizes Crowe's gleeful abandon in sprinting through an unlimited cultural dreamscape, openly infusing the film with pop culture hallmarks theoretically beloved by David, being transparently those beloved by Crowe.
Like the music choices feel very Crowe.
Exactly. And the explosion of fragmentary images representing a life flashing before his eyes during David's psychological breakdown. Those aren't just David's memories. They're this profound blend of David's and Crowe's own memories, including photos of Crowe as a child, his then-wife Nancy Wilson, snatches of Crowe family home movies, and behind-the-scenes candids from prior Crowe projects.
Wow, I didn't realize it went that deep. That's incredible.
Right. It adds this deeply personal, almost vulnerable layer to Vanilla Sky's unique value. It makes it a dream that is literally, in part, the director's own subconscious bleeding into the narrative. It's like Crowe's inviting you into his own mind as you try to navigate David's.
That makes Vanilla Sky way more than just a remake, then. It's a reinterpretation that uses pop culture as a language to explore identity and reality, reflecting a specifically American cultural landscape.
Yeah.
The sheer volume and deliberate choice of music, combined with these intensely personal visual cues, create this powerful, immersive, and uniquely American dreamscape that significantly differentiates it from the original. It's about how our personal cultural landscape, our shared memories, pop culture, how that shapes our perceptions and experiences, even in a manufactured reality. It asks us, what is our own Vanilla Sky made of?
Good question. Okay, let's dive deeper into the labyrinthine plot twists and, of course, the pivotal endings of both films. This is truly where the core mystery of each one lies.
The heart of it all.
The main twist, the one that redefines everything you've seen, makes you question the very fabric of the film, is central to both Abre los Ojos and Vanilla Sky. The revelation that the protagonist is in cryonic suspension and his reality is, in fact, a lucid dream.
Boom. That's the moment where the rug is just pulled out from under you, forcing you to reevaluate every single scene that came before and consider its true meaning within this totally new context.
And as we discussed, David's ultimate choice at the end of Vanilla Sky is whether to continue this dream, now with promised corrections from tech support, or to wake up to a daunting, unknown reality, which is framed as this literal leap of faith off the top of the skyscraper. This decision point is incredibly powerful because it encapsulates the film's core themes: perception, identity, the courage to face an uncertain truth.
Yeah, it's not just a plot device. It's a philosophical dilemma brought right to a head. What would you sacrifice for a perfect illusion, or what would you risk for an imperfect truth?
And what's truly fascinating is how Vanilla Sky leans into ambiguity even after the big reveal. Cameron Crowe himself, the director, has actually offered 5 distinct interpretations of Vanilla Sky's ending. Yeah, which really speaks to his intentional desire for the audience to keep questioning, to actively engage in the puzzle, rather than just be given one definitive answer.
Okay, what are they?
Okay, so first, he suggests the tech support character, Edmund Ventura, is telling the truth. 150 years have passed, and the events we've witnessed are a fully immersive, lucid dream. Simple enough.
Yeah.
Second interpretation. The entire film could be a dream. And the subtle evidence for this is a seemingly impossible date, 23,001, seen on David's car inspection sticker early in the film. February 30th doesn't exist.
Ah, clever, like a little breadcrumb.
Exactly. Third interpretation Crowe offers. The events after the car crash could simply be a dream David has while comatose in a hospital bed. A less sci-fi, but equally disturbing explanation for his disoriented state.
Right, more grounded possibility.
Fourth, and this is more meta. The entire film could be the plot of the book. Brian, David's best friend, is writing throughout the narrative, making the whole experience a fictional construct within the film itself.
Whoa, okay, that's bending things a bit.
And finally, the fifth interpretation suggests that everything David experiences after the crash is a hallucination caused by drugs administered during his reconstructive surgery, blurring the lines between medical recovery and psychological breakdown.
So basically, Crowe's saying, take your pick.
Pretty much. This multiplicity of interpretations is a core part of Vanilla Sky's unique value. It's designed to invite you, the audience, to actively participate in decoding the narrative. It fosters continuous discussion and rewatches.
And didn't he give a specific anchor point, too?
He did. Crowe pointed out that the presence of a vanilla sky, that specific dreamlike sky David sees in the background during the morning reunion after the nightclub scene, that explicitly marks the first lucid dream sequence. Everything that follows that exact moment, he asserts, is officially part of the dream.
Ah, okay. So that gives viewers a concrete point from which to try and untangle what's real and what's not, at least within the film's intended logic.
Exactly. Now let's compare how the films execute these twists and their endings, because there are notable differences in clarity, emotional impact, and how they use their supporting characters, starting with the psychiatrist's role.
Right. In Abre, Ojos, the psychiatrist is described as an integral part of Cesar's journey. His own questioning his own self is a perfect representation of a thematic question of what is real life. He doesn't just facilitate, he gets emotionally invested. He famously cries and argues intensely with the life extension leader.
So he's a significant emotional and thematic anchor, a sympathetic guide within Caesar's nightmare.
Exactly. Conversely, in Vanilla Sky, Kurt Russell's character, Dr. McCabe, while present, is often seen by critics as less caring, more of just a plot device. Some argue he basically cedes to being a figment of the dream after 30 seconds of arguing, like his conviction just crumbles too quickly.
Which lessens his impact, maybe, and diminishes the depth of that reality questioning theme that the original emphasized so strongly through that relationship.
For some viewers, yeah, it changes the dynamic from like a shared philosophical struggle to more of a quick exposition dump.
And this difference extends to the overall sense of mystery each film cultivates. Abre los Ojos maintain a much stronger sense of confusion and wonder, right? Due to its subtle hints, its deliberate pacing, its constant unsettling questioning of reality. You were truly left in the dark, trying to figure things out alongside Cesar, feeling his disorientation.
Definitely. Vanilla Sky, despite being 15 minutes longer than the original, sometimes felt rushed in its exposition, and was perceived by some as spoon-fed everything to the audience, which for them kind of diluted that intriguing mystery and the audience's active participation in the puzzle.
What's fascinating, though, is that Vanilla Sky actually has an alternate ending. It was released on the 2015 Blu-ray, and for many, it makes things a lot clearer.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know about that.
Yet this version expands on key details, provides additional context that was maybe missing or just too quick in the theatrical cut. It includes extra scenes, alternative takes, dialogue, runs about 5 minutes longer.
Like what?
Well, for example, there's an additional bathroom scene where McCabe desperately tries to convince David it's all a hoax. There's a lobby shootout. And further exposition from Edmund Ventura, the tech support guy, deepening the explanation of the cryogenic tech.
Huh. So that slower pace in the alternate ending allows crucial details to sink in better. Maybe provides more nuanced understanding of David's psyche.
That seems to be the consensus. It highlights things like David calling himself a monster, while McCabe, in his dream state, sees him as perfect. It really underscores that complex surrogate father dynamic and David's deep internal self-loathing that the theatrical cut perhaps rushed over.
So it offers a different kind of unique value, maybe for those who prefer clarity over ambiguity.
Exactly. Then there's the final gaze. In Abre los Ojos, the ending is more ambiguous. The screen fades to black, and we can't be absolutely sure Cesar ever truly wakes up from cryosleep. The implication is left open, creating this lingering sense of unsettling uncertainty.
It leaves you hanging a bit.
Whereas in Vanilla Sky, the final shot is deliberately impactful. It's David's eye-opening in a healthy, healed face, directly referencing the initial open your eyes alarm that starts the film. It's a visually conclusive moment.
Didn't someone point out an anachronism there?
Good point. One clever critique notes that Sophia's voice saying, "Open your eyes," at the very beginning of Vanilla Sky is an anachronism if David hasn't met her yet, which adds another subtle layer of intended confusion for those paying super close attention, suggesting maybe the dream started even earlier than we thought.
Tricky. And what about Stott's analysis of David's reaction upon waking?
Right. Stott suggests David's shock and unhappiness when he wakes up in Vanilla Sky, despite the dream being over, and his face miraculously healed, actually reinforces his narcissistic nature. It implies that even a perfect reality, a physically restored body, might not satisfy him, or that his deeper psychological issues remain unresolved. His emotional reaction isn't relief or joy, it's this profound dissatisfaction, echoing the idea that his problems are internal, not just external.
Wow. Okay, so this leads us beautifully to the thematic relevance of the ending in both films, but particularly Vanilla Sky. The film explores how David's pre-accident life was basically an unsustainable fantasy, right? A world where he used his wealth to avoid consequences, emotional intimacy, real connection.
Exactly. And his inherent guilt and self-loathing eventually corrupt his lucid dream, turning his personal utopia into a terrifying nightmare. The ending, therefore, signifies David's grown-up decision to finally face an uncertain reality, acknowledging that perpetuating the dream would just be perpetuating a lie he couldn't live with anymore. It's a choice for truth, however painful, over illusion.
And there's that poignant real-world connection in Vanilla Sky's ending, too, adding another layer of unique value, especially for an American audience watching it post-9/11.
World Trade Center towers.
Exactly. Their visible presence in the final scene Vanilla Sky was released shortly after the attacks was a conscious, deliberate decision by Cameron Crowe. He chose to leave the towers in the skyline as a tribute, a powerful visual statement linking the film's themes of reality and fantasy to a profound real-world tragedy.
Yeah, it makes the film, in this subtle yet powerful way, a time capsule of a specific, raw moment in American history, inviting reflection on what's real, what's lost, and what we choose to remember.
Powerful stuff.
So how were these two cinematic siblings received by the world? It's really a tale of two films when we look at their critical reception. Abre los Ojos, the original Spanish film, met with widespread critical acclaim.
Yeah, it did really well critically.
Earned an impressive 85% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, indicating near universal praise. Widely lauded for its psychological depth, nuanced performances, subtle handling of complex themes, critics saw it as thoughtful, profound cinema.
And Vanilla Sky.
Stark contrast. It received mixed critical reception upon release, a relatively low 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, and, get this, a pretty dismal D cinema score from audiences.
Ouch. D-, that's rough.
Yeah. Many critics found it incoherent, hard to follow, and as we mentioned, some famously called it that narcissistic vanity project for Tom Cruise, suggesting his star power overwhelmed the story.
I remember Stephanie Zacharek of Salon.com described it as a punishing picture, a betrayal of everything that Crowe has proved he knows how to do right, indicating significant disappointment from a director usually loved for his more grounded, character-driven stuff.
And its initial struggle was partly attributed to timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Audiences perhaps wanting escapism after 9/11, not a deep probing journey into one man's psyche filled with ambiguity.
Yeah, the timing was arguably quite unfortunate for Vanilla Sky.
That's a brutal initial reception. But here's where it gets really interesting. Despite those initial bad reviews, Vanilla Sky later gained a cult following. And it's now considered a favorite among many Tom Cruise fans, who maintain it features one of his greatest performances ever.
No kidding, so it bounced back.
Big time. Its surprising climb to $100 million at the box office, defying that terrible cinema score, and its eventual cult status are largely attributed to Cruise's undeniable star power, and the film's just endlessly fascinating nature. It kept pulling people in, defying its early critical dismissal. Like the film itself was this puzzle audiences couldn't shake. It had this unique power to endure.
That's fascinating. And maybe how the film focuses on Cruise's character's transformation and the way it plays with reality, maybe that resonates differently now with modern audiences who've seen Cruise's career evolve into like increasingly daring and complex roles.
That's a great point. Perhaps our shifting perceptions of him over time allow for a reevaluation of Vanilla Sky's themes, making his portrayal seem less self-indulgent now, more courageous maybe.
And you absolutely cannot overlook Cameron Diaz's performance as Julie Gianni. That was widely praised, right? Earned her multiple nominations, wins, even amidst the film's overall mixed reception. Her raw, unhinged portrayal of the spurned lover was a definite critical standout.
Absolutely. Provided some of the film's most memorable, most unsettling moments, contributed significantly to its unique value.
And maybe the most surprising, validating aspect of Vanilla Sky's legacy, it comes from the original's creator himself. Remarkably, Alejandro Amenábar, the director of Abre los Ojos, is a noted fan of the film.
You rarely see that kind of enthusiastic endorsement from an original director, especially when the original is so beloved and critically acclaimed. It's amazing.
He praised Crowe for having plumbed the deepest meaning of the work, while at the same time giving it his own unmistakable touch.
And what's truly insightful is his beautiful analogy for the two films. He likens them to two very special brothers. They sing the same song, but with quite different voices. One likes opera, and the other likes rock and roll.
That's perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Isn't it? It perfectly encapsulates the unique value of each film. They both explore the same profound, universal themes, reality, identity, choice, but they appeal to different sensibilities. They offer distinct artistic and emotional experiences. Wow. One is a haunting, elegant ballad. The other, an explosive, anthemic rock opera.
Opera versus rock and roll. It really highlights how two films can share a skeleton but have completely different souls, different energies. It's not about one being definitively better, but about appreciating their unique artistic merits and the different ways they can resonate.
Exactly. It invites us to consider how different cultural perspectives and directorial styles can shape a universal story.
Okay, let's get into some specific scene and element differences that really reinforce the unique value each film brings, beyond the broader character and tonal shifts we've talked about.
Good idea. One subtle but really significant change involves Penelope Cruz's character, Sophia, who of course plays the protagonist's love interest in both films. She was in both.
Right. But in Abre los Ojos, Sophia is a mime. In Vanilla Sky, she's a ballet dancer.
Now that might seem like a minor detail, but the mime context in Abre los Ojos was, for many, perfect in the context of the film. There's this particularly impactful scene where the rain washes away her mask, but she's still beautiful underneath, while Cesar is ugly.
Oh yeah, that visual metaphor is incredibly powerful. It directly represents Cesar's internal versus external ugliness. The mask literally coming off Sophia's face contrasts so sharply with Cesar's own metaphorical and literal mask of disfigurement. It highlights her inner beauty and his inner ugliness.
It's a very potent, almost poetic, unique visual. It speaks volumes without dialogue, deeply embedding the film's core themes right into its visual language.
Fantastic example of how subtle artistic choices carry immense thematic weight, contributing to a film's unique voice. Now let's look at the characterization and motivation of the spurned lover. Nuria in the original, Julie in Vanilla Sky, played by Cameron Diaz.
Right. Vanilla Sky takes a different approach here. It tries to give Julie a more substantial, maybe contradictory interiority. It tries to make her more than just a vengeful ex. Her line, "When you sleep with someone, your body makes a promise whether you do or not." That really adds a layer of complexity to her anger.
Makes her more than a mere femme fatale or just a plot device. She's not just jealous, she feels betrayed on this deeply fundamental level.
Which contrasts quite sharply with Abre los Ojos' Nuria, who, while impactful, is sometimes depicted by viewers as more of a horned-up batshit crazy woman with less nuanced motivation.
Yeah. And Cameron Crowe, as a director, is described as constitutionally unable to tell the story of an outright cruel protagonist. He kind of struggles with making David unsympathetic while also trying to inject humanism into Julie's character, which can sometimes lead to what some call a contradictory mess in her characterization.
But that attempt to humanize her does give Vanilla Sky a unique take on the jealous ex trope, maybe. Makes her emotional pain more palpable, even if it's confusing sometimes in its execution.
Definitely. It adds a layer of tragic humanity to her actions, making her more than just the catalyst for David's suffering. It's another way the remake offers a different flavor.
And finally, we absolutely have to talk about one of Vanilla Sky's most iconic and truly unique scenes, the opening sequence in Times Square. That image of Tom Cruise running through a completely deserted Times Square in New York City, breathtaking, instantly unforgettable.
Oh yeah, total mind blower. And what's incredible about this scene, adding to its unique production value, is that they did it practically. They actually managed to block off the entire area for 3 hours on a Sunday morning.
Think about that. The logistics, the cost, the cooperation needed. Just insane.
It was a huge testament to Tom Cruise's clout as a global movie star and Cameron Crowe's ambition at the time. It really demonstrates the film's unique production value and its commitment to sensory immersion, practical effects over CGI, which was a massive feat.
And the scene itself with that thundering trip-hop soundtrack, the kinetic, almost frantic camera work, it truly devours narrative oxygen, leaving the viewer reeling and begging those extra textual questions like, how on earth did they do that?
Exactly. It sets this tone of surreal, yet somehow grounded reality that Vanilla Sky carries throughout, making it a hallmark of the remake's distinct identity and a truly memorable moment in cinema history. It's a prime example of how Vanilla Sky embraced grand spectacle and sensory experience as part of its unique value, immediately signaling, hey, this film is going to be an immersive journey unlike the original.
So we've taken a deep dive into Abre, Ojos and Vanilla Sky. We've explored their shared unsettling premise and then uncovered their startlingly different takes on character, tone, the very fabric of reality.
From Cesar's journey of confronting his inner ugliness, the chilling ambiguity of his fate,
to David's more sympathetic, yet ultimately narcissistic, path and the kinetic pop culture explosion of his dreamscape. These films are truly two sides of a fascinating coin. They prove that the remake can be a profound reinterpretation, not just a carbon copy.
Yeah, exactly. As Alejandro Amenabar himself so eloquently put it, they truly sing the same song, but with quite different voices. One likes opera and the other likes rock and roll.
Perfect summary.
They both force us to ask these profound questions about what is real, what realities we construct for ourselves, and the weighty consequences of our choices, even when those choices are made within the confines of our own minds or, a technologically induced dream. They challenge us to look inward and consider the nature of our own perception.
And as you reflect on these two powerful cinematic experiences, each offering its own unique journey into the mind, consider this. If you had the chance, if you could design your own perfect dream, your own personal Vanilla Sky where everything was exactly as you wished, what painful truths, what unresolved anxieties, what raw pieces of your subconscious would inevitably try to sneak in and disrupt that perfect illusion? Would your own mind allow you to truly escape reality? Or would it ultimately force you somehow to open your eyes to what you've tried to bury?
Ooh, a question that definitely lingers long after the credits roll, inviting you to look inside your own deep dive.